So let's give you some tech specs of the MC3X. We'll start off with video. So it's a 4K camera and it will shoot 4K 30 frames, 2.7K 60 frames, 2.7 at 30 frames. It'll do 120 frames, so that's 4 times slow motion at full HD, and it will also do full HD at 60 and full HD at 30. And obviously, if you did want to shoot 720p, for example, if you want to conserve a little bit of memory, if you're running low on your memory card, then it will shoot all of those frame rates, but also at 720p. And no, there is no 480p or 360p on this. It is literally just HD, full HD, or 4K. It's important to mention that there is no option here to actually shoot in more cinematic frame rates like 25 or 24p. You are literally stuck with just 30p. And I have gone through the menu system to see if changing some of the other functions would actually change that, and I actually can't find anywhere where you can actually go from NTSC to PAL. So you are actually stuck with a NTSC based frame rate. Now it's important to mention that this little Agfa gimbal actually does have a Sony sensor, and it does pack a punch. And this camera specifically, aside from the video specs that I just gave you, it will also shoot stills. And specifically, it will shoot stills at 20 megapixels, 14 megapixels, 10 megapixels, 8 megapixels, 5 megapixels, 4, 3, and 2. So you're probably wondering why you're being given so many options. And I think the answer is actually quite simple. You know, if you do want to have the resolution, if you do happen to actually use this camera and some of the images from it for something that you want to blow up, for example, you do have the options there to use those 20 megapixel files. So maybe, for example, if you are on a long trip and you haven't brought that many memory cards or have any real way of backing it up, for example, then it's nice to know that you do have those options to actually shoot at lower resolutions to conserve space. Anyway, either way, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing to have those options. So I spent about three and a bit hours now with Agfa's gimbal here, and I'm not going to lie, I've actually really enjoyed shooting with it. The main highlight of this camera really is that awesome 3.5-inch LCD, which is incredible. The fact that you can rotate it if you want to do content for TikTok, for example, and have it vertical, or you want a more traditional filming method and have it landscape 16:9, I think is wonderful. The easy way that you can toggle between video and photo just by clicking the top left corner is fantastic, as well as the options within each shooting mode, both for photo and for video. So as we talked about before, most of the menus are actually accessed via the touchscreen panel, which is right here, as you can see. And I tend to kind of want to use it when it's actually on landscape orientation, just so I can actually have more space this way to actually access my menus. So the menus slightly change depending on what mode you're on. So the moment I'm on stills mode, I then tap the screen and then I go to the little settings dial on the right hand side there, and then I've got the option as to kind of what to do. So I can choose my resolution, I can choose my photo ratio being 16:9 or 4:3. I can choose auto ISO, or actually select my ISO in specific increments. I think they seem to be full stop, so 100, 200, 400, 800, and it tops out at 3200 ISO. It also has exposure compensation, so you can dial in +1, +2, -1, -2 if you find that it's overexposing or underexposing, depending on the scene that you're actually shooting. Now, I haven't tested this in low light, but bearing in mind this is a Sony sensor, the fact that it's an f2.2 maximum aperture lens, as well as the fact that it goes up to higher ISO values, I'm sure that it will be fantastic. But obviously we can't expect the same level of capability as a full-frame Sony sensor, of course, but I think it will still be pretty good. I think it's done as much as it possibly can to actually help you out with that. In terms of the UX, in terms of the actual user experience and actually using this, I think it's fantastic. I think wanting to incorporate as much as possible into the touchscreen interface to actually make this manageable, I think it's been fantastic. And I think they've done a really good job of making everything like really stand out in the screen, so you know exactly where to access. I mean, today is a particularly bright and sunny day. I'm wearing polarized glasses and it has been a struggle, but even now I can actually see where everything is. And that's only after only 3 hours shooting. If you were to own something like this, I'm sure you get up to speed in absolutely no time whatsoever. Now, in terms of things that I didn't like so much, I think the gimbal is absolutely fantastic. You can obviously control the gimbal just from the touchscreen. As you can see here, I can actually make this tilt kind of left and right as well, but I would like a way to actually completely lock that gimbal so I have complete control as to how I'm doing this. Now, there are ways that you can actually control how the gimbal works in terms of face tracking, not face tracking, and actually lock the axis, but I actually found that it always wants to move a little bit, so you do have to override it. But I think if I'm completely honest with you, there's always been a workaround and it hasn't been that much of a headache. Obviously, when you first use something, you're always going to get a little bit frustrated because you don't fully understand how to do it. But obviously, once you own something for a while and get used to it, everything becomes second nature. And I think I'm definitely finding that with this gimbal. But I think the real highlight as well is that lens. That 120-degree viewing angle makes a city like London, where there is so much happening, it makes so much available to you in a single frame, and I think that's fantastic. Because you have 4K video and because you have 20 megapixel stills, you do have a little bit of scope to crop in to actually get framing exactly how you want it. Aside from that, controls are fantastic on the side, connectivity there as well, and the fact it takes just standard micro SDs, it makes everything incredibly simple. So bearing in mind how much market share other brands have in this market, I'm incredibly impressed by how good the AgfaPhoto MC3X has been. I think it's got my vote. Anyway, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.